Your first breath is older than any book you'll ever see. The fire is low, but it's there, glowing softly in the heart of the room. It flickers with the kind of light that clings to things, the folds of old linen, the curve of a clay pot, the wet rim of a wooden bowl someone forgot to scrub. The smell is thick, smoke and wet wool, a little animal dung, yes, and something stewing, always something stewing. You don't remember being born? No one really does. But if you could, it would sound like a rustle of hay under your back and the soft grunt of a woman who's already returned to work. You are small, wrinkled, and a little purple. The air around you is cold and full of breath. Your mother lays you close to the fire, not too near, on a patch of furs that once belonged to something with antlers. You cry, then stop. No one rushes to coddle you, not because they don't care, but because it's just the way of things. Birth in this village is not a celebration. It's another chore crossed off the day. You arrive in the world with all the fanfare of a misplaced carrot. Yet here you are, the cottage's one room. Walls of wattle and daub, woven sticks covered in dried mud. The floor is packed earth, recently swept with a broom made of twigs. A pot hangs over the hearth, bubbling softly. Someone's making pottage again, probably the same one as yesterday. Cabbage, barley, maybe a shred of salted pork if the gods are smiling. The light filters in through a small, greasy bit of oiled parchment stretched over a hole in the wall. Glass, that's for churches and lords. Here you get sunlight strained through animal fat. Outside, the village is waking. But it's not large. A dozen families, maybe 15. Chickens loiter in the lane like gossiping ants. Pig snuffles around. The door. Somewhere someone is already shouting about bread. Your father isn't here. He's in the fields, fixing a hedge that the wind toppled in the night. Your birth didn't delay him. It's not that he doesn't care. He just knows that joy is best tempered with caution. Babies are fragile things. 2 of your siblings didn't make it past their first winters. Their names are still spoken gently when the fire burns low, and your mother's hands stop moving for just a second. But never too long. There are always more things to sew. A neighbor woman helped deliver you, old Marta. With hands like tree bark and a voice like a goose in distress, she's delivered. Half the village buried the other half, and still manages to keep her apron cleaner than yours will ever be. She tied off your cord with sheep sinew and muttered a Latin prayer she didn't understand. Sounded official, and that's what counts. There's no priest today. He visits once every fortnight. You'll be baptized next Sunday if the weather holds and the ox doesn't throw a shoe. Until then, your soul hovers somewhere between heaven and damp earth. Everyone pretends not to worry. Your first blanket is an old tunic, worn thin and patched with love. Your first toy is a piece of polished bone someone thought looked like a horse. You won't need much more. You won't have a cradle too grand. You'll sleep by the fire, next to your siblings, dogs, and whatever creature the cat dragged. It's communal, it's warm, it's life. A few more children crowd around you. One pokes your foot and announces to the room, "This one's got long toes? He'll be a runner." Another shrugs and says, "If he lives." No one scolds. It's not cruelty. It's just arithmetic. And yet, you're alive. Breathing. Tiny fists curled. Nice. Unfocused. Welcome to the 13th century. Historians still debate exactly how many infants survived their first year in medieval Europe. Some say 1 in 4 died. Others claim it was closer to half. Records are scarce, and even the church books sometimes forgot. The names of those who didn't last a winter. But you're warm. That's a good sign. You've eaten your mother, cradled you while chewing bread before feeding you, because your teeth are months away from erupting and you'll be weaned. Early. She's tired, but her hands are steady. Outside, a bell rings once from the chapel tower. It marks the hour, or the fact that someone died, or maybe just that the chickens are in the wrong field again. Bells are multi-purpose here. You are the 3rd child of your house, or the 4th. Or maybe the 6th, counting the ones who only stayed a little while. Your family doesn't have much, but they have each other. And dirt. Plenty of dirt. The saints may or may not be watching. You're wrapped in a scrap of cloth. Blessed last Candlemas. The cat eyes you from across the room. It approves. Later today. Someone will spit on your forehead and draw a cross. Tomorrow, you'll be carried out into the sun for the first time. Maybe you'll sneeze. That's a good omen. The road outside your door has no name. Your home has no number. But you, little peasant, born of smoke and straw and silent prayers, you have everything you need. A place near the fire. A mother who hums without noticing. In time, if the wings are kind. You blink slowly, you drift. You sleep, and the world begins. Asterisk, you wake to the sound of clucking, not the polite kind that hints at eggs and breakfast. The frantic, aggressive sort that says a hen is either fighting for dominance or thinks your foot is edible. You kick. Slightly, she relents. This is how your mornings begin now. You're about 6, or maybe 5. No one's quite sure. Years are not counted with candles or birthday cakes here. They're marked by harvests, bad winters, and that time the baker's chimney fell and singed the vicar's eyebrows. You're old enough to walk, talk, and be useful. That's what matters. You roll off your sleeping mat, which is a generous term for a flattened sack stuffed with straw and whatever your sister found in the loft. Your tunic is waiting, the same one you wore yesterday and the day before that. It smells faintly of goats. You do not mind today. Your job is clear. Keep the birds out of the barley. It's an honored position among village children, which is to say, no one else wanted it, and your older brother said it was your turn. You believe him, because he's taller and has once seen a real knight from a distance. You don't have shoes, you have feet, strong, wide, earth-stained feet, each toe as independent as a squirrel. The mud squelches around them as you run toward the field, waving your scare stick like a miniature warrior. It's just a bundle of twigs tied with twine. But when you shake it, the birds scatter usually. The morning is cool. Mist clings to the grass like gossip. Cart creaks in the distance, pulled by a tired ox with eyes wiser than the priest. The village behind you groans awake. Hearths are lit, soup is stirred, curses are muttered at stubborn door latches. You take your position beside a crooked fence made of half-rotted wood and imagination. From here you can see the fields stretch toward the trees. The barley is young and green. Your family depends on it. You do not fully understand this, but you understand the look in your father's eyes when he talks about crows. A large one. Lands near the crop, bold and black, head cocked. You rattle your stick. It does not move. You rattle harder. Well, it hops once, then glares. You consider throwing a rock, but remember last week's incident? The one with the pig, the stone, and the 2-day limp. The crow leaves eventually. Not because of you, but because it wants to. You claim victory anyway. Your lunch is cold pottage wrapped in a cloth barley. Onions, maybe a stray pea if the world is feeling generous. You eat it sitting on a fallen log surrounded by weeds. And the constant drone of insects that refuse to respect your personal space. Another boy joins you, Will, a son of the thatcher. He has a similar scare stick, but with feathers tied on top, which makes it 37% more effective, in his opinion. He shows you a dead mole he found. You pretend to be impressed. He offers to trade it for your bread crust. You decline. You talk about important things. Whether the miller's daughter is a witch, she talks to cats. Whether fish sleep they must surely, and whether heaven has pigs that don't bite. You don't know any of the answers, and neither does Will. But it's pleasant to wonder. By afternoon, you're tired. The sun is higher now, turning the mist into sweat. You lie in the grass, staring at clouds shaped like sheep, or possibly turnips. Your stick rests beside you, forgotten for a moment. A bird lands. You sigh and sit up. Historians still debate how much leisure time peasant children had. Some argue their lives were filled with play between chores. Others insist they worked nearly as hard as adults from the moment they could carry a bucket. The truth, like most things, is probably somewhere in the middle, nestled between duty and dandelions. By evening, you return home with mud up to your knees and half a feather in your hair. Mother wipes your face with the edge of her apron and offers you a bit of cheese. Your sister laughs at the burrs stuck to your tunic. Your father inspects your stick and nods solemnly. The fire is warm, the stew is edible. You sit close to the hearth, legs tucked under you, listening as the grown-ups murmur about weather, rats, and the price of salt. Someone mentions a wolf sighting.
Oh.
Someone else claims the stars look angry. You don't know what angry stars look like, but you nod anyway. Before bed, you scratch at a flea bite and blow on the embers to watch them glow. You share your sleeping mat with 2 siblings and half a dog. You fall asleep to the crackle of wood and the rhythmic snoring of someone whose nose is slightly too big for peace. And as you drift off, you think about the crow, bold and black, and wonder what it dreams of. You're older now, maybe 10, possibly 11. Your limbs are longer. You've lost most of your baby teeth, except for one wobbly molar that hangs on like a drunk clergyman at a feast. Your voice squeaks in strange places, and your tunic fits. Even worse than before. But one thing is certain. You are now officially considered useful. Today your job is in the kitchen yard, which sounds more glamorous than it is. There's no kitchen, not really. Just an open lean-to where food is stored, sliced, stirred, eventually burned. You sit on a low stool next to a pile of pots that look like they lost a fight with a stew. Each one is crusted in yesterday's porridge and ambition. Your weapon? A rag made from a dead shirt and a wooden paddle. Beside you, a trough of gray water glares up at you like it resents its role in this process. You scrub in circles, big ones, small ones. Some of the grime refuses to budge, so you chip at it with a stick. When that fails, you quietly smear ash over it to disguise the stain. It's a system. It's not a good one, but a system nonetheless. Flies gather like gossips at a church door. You swat them lazily, wondering if they've always existed or were invented. Just to make this task harder. One lands on your nose. You slap it. You miss. Your mother yells from inside to stop hitting yourself. You pretend you weren't. From somewhere deeper in the house comes the sound of a baby crying, a spoon clattering, and your older brother explaining to someone how ale strengthens the legs. No one believes him. Your sister appears barefoot. In carrying a chicken that looks just as annoyed to be here as you do, she's plucked 3 eggs from the coop and hands them to you. One is warm. Place it gently on a folded cloth like it's made of dreams. A small moment of success. Lunch is crusty bread and cheese that smells like regret. You chew it slowly, sitting in the shade of the doorway. A dog, the same one from before, possibly older than time, lays beside you. He farts without apology. You pretend not to notice. In the afternoon, you help your mother grind herbs. Today, it's mallow leaves, good for sore throats and possibly demons. No one is entirely sure. The mortar is heavy, the pestle heavier, your arms ache, but you grind, Neighbor woman arrives with a jar of lard and a story about her cousin's foot boil. You are excused from the conversation, for which you are grateful. You sneak out back and climb the tree near the pigsty, a luxury afforded to those quick enough to vanish before being handed a broom. From up here, the village looks oddly peaceful. Smoke curls from rooftops. The mill wheel creaks. Someone sings a hymn slightly off-key, and just for a moment, you imagine being elsewhere. Perhaps a knight, or a monk, or a merchant in fine robes, sneezing into silks. Historians still debate whether peasants dreamed of social mobility. Some believe they accepted their fate without question. Others argue they secretly yearned for more, whispered wishes into the hearth, or gazed longingly at the manor house from behind hay bales. You for now just wish for a nap. Evening comes with the usual complaints. Your father's back, your mother's knees, the neighbor's goat. You eat stew again? It tastes exactly like yesterday's stew, 'cause it is. You fall asleep with herb dust in your fingernails and the scent of onions in your hair. It's not glamorous. It's not glorious. But it's yours. The bell tolls before. Dawn, one long, solemn clang that rolls through the fog like a slow wave. You sit up, rubbing your eyes with the sleeve of your too-short tunic. The air is damp. The kind of damp that soaks into your soul and makes your joints ache before you even have joints worth complaining about. It's plowing day. which means no breakfast until the oxen are harnessed, and the first row of earth has been sliced open. Like a loaf of warm bread, your father waits outside, already grumbling about frost and God's sense of humor. He hands you a walking stick that is less for support and more for poking things. You take it solemnly, as if it holds ancient power. The field lies just past the edge of the village, framed by crooked hedges and dotted with old rocks no one's bothered to move. The soil is damp but forgiving. You begin the process. The plow creaks. The oxen snort and shuffle. Your father grunts and mutters things under his breath that you're not technically supposed to hear. You pretend not to. Your job is to guide the oxen with gentle tugs and not-so-gentle nudges. You whisper to them like they're sacred beasts. They respond like they are not. The earth turns in dark. Rich folds. Worms wiggle. A beetle runs 4. It's life. You marvel at how the land changes, soft underfoot, fragrant in its own way, like moss and thunder and something ancient waking up. By midday, you've plowed 3 long rows and developed a blister on your thumb that you will absolutely show everyone later, like a war medal. Lunch is bread with lard and a bit of apple. You eat it sitting on a turned-up bucket, watching your breath fog the air. Your father hands you a sip of weak ale. Pretend to enjoy it. The church bell rings again, a reminder that, even in the fields, God is watching. Or at least listening. Your father points to the steeple. That bell's older than my knees, he says. They say it tolls when souls pass. You ask if it tolls for pigs. He does not laugh after lunch. You walk behind the plow and press seeds into the loosened furrows. Tiny hopes buried in dirt, wheat, barley, rye. Whatever the steward has demanded this year, the village doesn't choose what to grow. The Lord's man does. He'll be by later to inspect. He always sniffs the air like he's trying to catch a lie. You notice a patch of wildflowers near the edge of the field. Bright. Unbothered by your tilling, you pluck one and tuck it behind your ear no one sees, except maybe the ox. You wink at him. By sundown, your back aches, your knees are stained, and your arms feel like someone else's. But the rows are neat, the seeds are down, and the land fickle. Forgiving land has taken your offering. Historians still debate how efficient medieval agriculture truly was. Some argue peasants were masters of the land, using clever techniques passed down for centuries. Others believe they just did what they could and hoped for rain. Your hands know only this: dirt, seed, sweat, repeat. That night you fall asleep. With the sound of the bell still echoing in your bones, you dream of fields that go on forever, and plows that pull themselves. Your tunic fits tighter now, shoulders broadening, hands rougher than they used to be. The chores are heavier, but your gaze has grown too. It doesn't just rest on soil and livestock anymore. It scans the world, quietly hungry for meaning, or maybe just for better bread. Today, however, there's no work.
Not yet.
It's a feast day. The air smells different. Sweet smoke, warm pastry, and roasted something. The priest says it's St. Martin's Day. You don't remember what St. Martin did, but you silently thank him anyway. The village has been stirring since before dawn. You put on your best tunic, a little too short at the wrists, but clean. Enough to pretend. Your mother smooths your hair with a hand that still smells like onions and warmth. She smiles. You try not to dot out in the green. Things feel different. The chickens are quieter, the dog less grumpy, the old wooden cross at the center tied with faded ribbons. Someone's hung garlands around the pig pen. The pig is unimpressed. A goose turns on a spit, slowly sizzling in front of the steward's borrowed hearth. You don't know whose goose it was. You don't ask. It crackles with the promise of fat and feasting. A small miracle in a life that doesn't often get them. There's dancing, of a sort. A fiddler scrapes out a tune like a cat being politely strangled. A baker's niece twirls beside you, her braid flying, eyes brighter than the sun on puddles. You pretend not to look. You fail. You try dancing. You step on someone's toe. You bow to apologize. She bows back. Your heart hiccups a little. You call it digestion. Then the priest rises. His voice carries the weight of winter behind it. Firm, familiar, not unkind. He blesses the harvest. reminds you that Advent is coming, that today is indulgence, but tomorrow is discipline. You nod along, you do not understand all of it, but you understand that the goose is nearly gone and no one is talking. The food fades, the sun sinks. Hymns replace laughter. Even the sky sobers. Historians still argue over how many feast days the average. Peasant truly celebrated. Some count nearly 100 in a year. Others claim that most were only rest days on paper. More prayer than pudding. Hey, you don't worry about that? You ate goose today. That's all the miracle you need. Later, lying on straw with your arms behind your head, you replay the laughter, the music, the slight brush of a hand on yours during the ribbon dance. It smile at the ceiling. Tomorrow, it will be pottage again. But tonight, your belly is full, and so is something else you can't quite name. Your thoughts are slower lately, softer. You still rise with the chickens and work with the oxen, but now your heart seems to pause at the well each morning, listening for footsteps that don't always come. There's a girl, Elsbeth. She carries herself like someone who knows. The weight of water buckets, and the difference between a good egg and a bad one, just by touch. You saw her laugh once, a real laugh, and the world briefly stopped turning. You try to talk to her. You manage, sometimes. Mostly you nod and say things like nice goose, then immediately wish for the sweet release of death. She smiles anyway. You chop extra firewood and offer to carry her sack of grain. She lets you. One day, you find a sprig of thyme tied. With a string left on your doorstep, it might be from her. You keep it hidden in your tunic anyway, like a relic. The May Day festival nears, the one with the tall pole and the dancing ribbons. Children chatter about flower crowns and buns with currants. The old folks groan about twisted ankles and sinners. You worry about stepping on her foot again? Your mother catches you brushing dust from your sleeves and raises one brow. She says, nothing. But the corner of her mouth twitches. On May Day, the world blooms. Literally, flowers everywhere and hair on pies in the air. The green smells like crushed petals and bread, and something hopeful you can't quite name. You see her. Near the apple tree, her braid looped with daisies. You gather your courage, walk across the grass, and ask if she'll dance. She says yes. It is not a graceful dance. You stumble twice, nearly knock over the blacksmith's youngest son, and lose your rhythm completely when she squeezes your hand. But she laughs. You laugh. And in that clumsy circle of ribbons, it feels like nothing could go wrong ever again. Historians still debate how much freedom medieval peasants had in choosing whom to love. Some say arrangements were practical, transactions between families. Others argue love always found its way, like rain between roof tiles, wildflowers in a plowed field. You don't know what history will say, but you'll remember the sound of her laugh, the weight of her hand, and the warmth that bloomed somewhere between your ribs and your spine. Later that night, as the village sleeps, you lie awake, smiling into the darkness, and trace the ribbon she tied to your wrist. You wake to the soft ache of routine, joints stiff from sleeping on straw, a breeze slipping through cracks in the timber walls. Somewhere, a rooster is giving its usual speech, which no one asked for. You rise before the sun fully does, pull, on a tunic that's more patched than fabric, and reach for your wooden belt hook. Today is rent day. It arrives 4 times a year with the same certainty as rain and disappointment. You walk the path toward the manor with your father, both of you balancing offerings in baskets, eggs, a lump of wool, a stringy chicken who looks personally offended. These are your rent payments, not in coin, but in things that cluck, squawk, or smell faintly of sheep. The steward awaits at a tall wooden table outside the manor hall. He's got a scroll, a quill, and the kind of nose that suggests he can smell poverty at 10 paces. He sniffs the air as you approach like a man hunting sins. You stand beside your father, silent, watching as each family steps forward, listing off their goods with the same energy as reading bad poetry aloud. One man offers barley and receives a frown. Another has a piglet. He earns a nod. Your chicken gets a shrug. The steward doesn't speak much, but he raises one brow like a guillotine with every offering. He marks the scroll, scratches something with the quill. You wonder what your name looks like when written on parchment. Probably crooked. Then comes the part no one likes. The labor tally, each able-bodied villager knows. The Lord a set number of days working his fields, not their own. It's called corvée, and it's not optional. Your father is listed for 3 days of plowing, your older brother for 1 day of ditch repair, and you're now counted too. 1 day of manor stable duty. You try not to look pleased. We're hoping to work with the horses, until you remember what the horses leave behind. It's not all galloping and glamour. Later, as you help your father carry the empty basket back home, he mutters about the steward's crooked scroll and the Lord's crooked back. You nod. The road crunches underfoot. A crow watches from a branch. You throw it a crust. Historians still debate whether peasants deeply resented the feudal system or simply tolerated it with a kind of exhausted grace. Some say the dues were crushing. Others argue that in a world with no safety net, feudalism was a net of sorts. Frayed, yes, but better than the void. You don't know what void means, but you know this. The Lord didn't plow your field, you did, and now you'll shovel out his stable too. The stable smells like warm straw, damn wood, and the unmistakable tang of horse manure, which is to say it smells exactly like you. Expected, you arrive at the manor just after sunrise. The steward nods without looking up from his scroll and gestures toward the stable boy, a lad named Odo, who is always chewing something and never explains what Dodo shows you the ropes. Literally. You tie one around a horse's halter, another around a feed sack. Everything smells like leather, oats, and mild danger. The horses themselves are enormous. You thought they'd be like the old mule back home? They are not. These are war horses, or at least used to be war horses. Their legs are thick as tree, trunks, their eyes sharp and judgmental. Your job is simple: shovel muck, refill water, brush down the beasts, and try not to get kicked. Odo explains this with a grin that says he's seen people fail. You begin with the muck. It's heavier than it looks. Steam rises from the pile like it's whispering secrets. You do not want to hear them. Then comes the grooming. You take a stiff-bristled brush and approach the largest horse, who regards you with a look of ancient disdain. As you run the brush along its side, you notice a scar near its shoulder, old and white. You wonder what fight it remembers. Next is water. You carry buckets from the well behind the manor. The path is uneven. Your arms are sore, and you splash yourself multiple times. By the 4th trip, you stop caring. You're wet. So what? As you return with the final bucket, you catch sight of the manor's great door swinging open. A woman in velvet steps out, the lady of the manor, probably. Her sleeves drag the ground like she's allergic to dirt. She doesn't look at you. You don't expect her to. But the horse you just brushed nickers softly and she pauses. He likes you. She says, not unkindly. Then she's gone. The door closes. You pretend it didn't happen? But Odo grins at you like it did. At midday, Odo shares a heel of cheese and a story about the time the steward fell in the pig trough. You laugh with your mouth full. He adds, don't tell anyone. You nod. You'll definitely tell everyone by. Evening, your arms feel like sacks of stones. But the stalls are clean, the hay fluffed, the horse is calmer. One of them even lets you scratch behind its ear without trying to bite your hand. You walk home with straw in your hair and the faint scent of horse in your tunic. Your mother wrinkles her nose. You smile. Not bad for a day's work. Historians still debate how often peasants worked in noble stables, whether it was a duty, a punishment, or an honor. For you it was a little of all three, but mostly it was a chance to feel useful and maybe admired, even if only by a horse. You sleep hard that night, muscles humming, dreams filled with galloping hooves and velvet sleeves trailing through mist. There's a stretch of hedgerow beyond the last cottage, just before the tree line thickens. It always smells like crushed mint and secrets. That's where Widow Agnes lives, if you can call it living. Her cottage leans slightly like it's listening in. Smoke curls from the crooked chimney, and the roof grows moss like a second scalp. No one talks about her much. Which is strange, considering everyone talks about her all the time. They call her a wise woman. I can't say it the way you'd say snake or storm. She sells herbs, poultices, sometimes prayers. And depending on who's telling the story, she also talks to crows, sings to toads, and once turned a man's beard gray for lying about butter. You don't believe all of it, probably. Still, your sister had a wart on her thumb the size of a lentil. No cure worked. Then one visit to Widow Agnes, some crushed marigold, a chant, and a walnut shell, and it vanished. You've never forgotten that. You see her today, bent over her garden of curling stems and strange smells. She hums a melody without notes. Hummingbird thin, wave. Then immediately pretend to be scratching your nose. She doesn't wave back, but her crow blinks at you. You don't stop walking. Back in the village, gossip flowers like thistles, hardy and sharp. You hear the thatcher's wife swears Agnes can curse crops, that she predicted a pig's stillbirth, that she talks to a man in her chimney, though no one else hears him. Some say she's a witch. Others say she's lonely. Many believe both. But when the baker's son got a fever last winter, it wasn't the priest they ran to first. It was Agnes, with her bundle of dried flowers and bitter broth. He lived, and that's worth more than whispers. At the well, women trade more than water. They swap suspicions. You hear things like she drinks owls, milk, and her cat's been alive since King John. You laugh. Quietly, you're still. Wouldn't want to make her angry. Historians still debate whether medieval cunning folk were tolerated healers or hunted heretics. Some say they were deeply respected. Others barely tolerated scapegoats wrapped in nettles and fear. But you just know the wart's gone. Your sister still has the walnut shell. You turn back once, near dusk. There's a single candle, burning in Widow Agnes's window. Maybe it's watching. The church is the biggest stone thing you've ever seen. It looms in the village like it's listening, not with ears, but with judgment. Cold in winter, damp in summer, and always smelling faintly of mildew and incense. It's as much a place of worship as it is the town's memory. This morning, the priest's voice echoes off the walls like a crow in a barrel. He's talking about St. Eligius, protector of blacksmiths, apparently, and how once he tricked the devil by grabbing his nose with hot tongs. You don't understand the moral, but you appreciate the image. Later, someone swears they saw the devil's actual toenail preserved in a reliquary in York. You find this doubtful, but you like the idea that evil has feet. Makes it seem more manageable. Your role in the church is simple. Stand, kneel, mumble the Latin words that sound like water spilling from a cracked jug. Sometimes you serve as an acolyte, holding the candle with trembling arms. Once you nearly dropped it, the priest looked at you like you'd juggled fire. You confess once a week. It's not that you sin more than others, just that you're more creative. You confessed once to stealing an onion, which you technically just borrowed from the ground. Another time you admitted to thinking impure thoughts about the tanner's daughter. The priest sighed. The church also hosts processions. You walk, slowly, barefoot, behind a wooden crucifix, the villagers mumbling prayers in different keys. The priest chants. Someone inevitably coughs. You trip over a root once and blame the devil. No one questions it. You've started to notice saints for everything. Lost keys, aching knees, hopeless causes, sheep in labor, poor harvests, itchy rashes. It seems the heavenly bureaucracy is vast and oddly specific. You wonder if there's a patron saint of muddy boots. Still, it brings comfort. Even the incense, even the stone walls, even the draft that always seems to know you're back. The church bells mark time. Births, deaths, marriages. Sometimes they ring just because someone saw a cloud shaped like a dragon, or because the bell ringer is bored. There's a rumor that one of the relics in the altar is a piece of St. Balthazar's elbow. No one knows who verified that. No one dares question it either. Historians still debate how deeply faith ruled peasant life. Some claim it was all-consuming, every waking moment wrapped in fear and piety. Others believe it was more practical, a rhythm, a habit, a communal lullaby sung to the stars. For you, it's both. You pray, you sin, you repent, you forget. You try again. You like the saints that seem tired. It's the ones who probably spill wine on their robes and fall. Asleep during vigils, you leave the church with wax on your sleeve and a crick in your back. A dog follows you home, as if sensing absolution. You give it a crust of bread. It forgives you everything. There's a time in the year that everyone dreads. It slips quietly between late winter and early spring, like a thief who doesn't bother hiding. No festivals, no fat geese. Just the hungry gap, when last year's stores are nearly gone, and the new crops haven't yet risen. The pottage is thinner now. No beans, just cabbage, and even that's guessing at its own flavor. Your stomach makes more noise than the village bell. The root cellar is nearly bare. Single turnip sits on the shelf like it's guarding a treasure. You eat it anyway. Your mother stretches the flour with crushed acorns, pretending it's a recipe. You try not to notice the bite of bitterness. She hums while stirring, the same melody as always. It helps. A little. You go outside and dig the frostbitten ground with your father. It's not really farming, more like coaxing. The soil is. Tired, so are you. But there's hope somewhere under the muck. A few green shoots promise better days. By noon, your stomach forgets how to hope. You gnaw on bark once, just once. It's not the flavor that's the problem, it's the shame. A traveling friar comes through. Yes. Preaching about moderation, you wish him a long and sincere walk into the next village. Children cry more this time of year. They understand enough to know something's missing, but not enough to know it isn't their fault. You give your younger brother the last crust of bread. He says thanks with his eyes, mouth too dry for words. You dream of eggs, not even cooked, just smooth, white, and miraculous. Historians still debate how widespread famine truly was in medieval Europe. Some suggest it came every few years like a bad guest. Others believe the hungry gap was simply part of life, not disaster, just design. But tonight, as you lie on straw, your belly quiet and empty, you think even design can feel like cruelty. You sleep with your hand on your ribs. They rise, they fall. Tomorrow, maybe something green will grow. Summer returns like an apology, warm, lush, and absolutely covered in bugs. The fields burst open with barley, oats, leeks, onions, and something vaguely green that might be edible or might be a weed pretending. It doesn't matter. You'll eat it. The harvest begins. It's all hands in the field. Even the priest is seen holding a scythe. Badly, but it counts. Children chase birds. Men swing blades. Women bind sheaves with arms like rope. You work until your shirt clings to your back like a second skin. There's rhythm to it. The swish of the scythe, the sigh of wheat falling, the thud of bundles dropped into carts. It's the closest thing to music the earth ever makes with you. Joke that your left arm is now only hay and freckles. After a few days, the sun becomes cruel. Your neck reddens. Your hands blister. Your back hums with pain. But no one stops. There's too much to lose. You work faster, then slower, then not at all until someone hands you a bit of cider and says, "Don't die yet." You drink it. Don't die. Success. The steward appears, of course. He does not swing a scythe. He does not carry bundles. But he inspects the wheat like he gave birth to it. He nods. You do not throw a clod of dirt at him. You're proud. The gleaners come next. Mostly old women and children, allowed to collect the leftover stalks. One limps by, muttering to herself. She curses a crow in Latin. Possibly it works. The crow leaves. On the last day, there's a feast. It's not grand. Bread, cheese, ale. Maybe even a pie if someone felt fancy. But there's singing and laughter. And no one talks about winter. Not yet. You catch sight of Elsbeth in a crown of barley stalks. You tell her she looks like harvest itself. No. She smirks and says you look like the donkey that pulled the cart. You smile anyway. Historians still debate whether medieval harvest celebrations were truly joyful or simply ritualized relief. Some say they were wild, wind-drenched affairs. Others argue they were quiet thanks to God's saints and sore backs. For you, it's both. Your legs ache, your arms throb, but your belly is full. The granary smells like security, and the moon hangs above the barn like a ripe pear. You sleep that night on a bed of fresh straw, full and sunburned, and you dream not of saints or kings, but of onions and barley and a girl with gold in her hair. There's a small wooden box at the edge of the church nave, carved crudely, like someone's first attempt at carpentry. It's the tithe box, and it waits with the patience of saints and taxmen. Once a year, every family must offer one of their harvest to the church. Grain, eggs, cured meat, honey, it doesn't matter. If it has value, it's tithed. If it doesn't, it's still expected. Your father mutters as he places a sack of barley beside the box. He doesn't curse. Not exactly. But his lips twist in that quiet way men reserve for bad weather and bad bishops. You contribute to clay pots of honey. You carried them the whole way without spilling. Your mother says the priest will bless you. You're more concerned he won't. Break the pots. Inside the church, the priest reads a passage you've heard before about giving freely, cheerfully. No one looks cheerful. One man coughs in a way that sounds like disbelief, but you give. You always do, because the alternative is being called ungodly. And in a village like this, godliness is the only thing thinner than the pottage. Later that week, a toothache blooms behind your molar. It's the kind that hums, then shouts. You ask your mother what to do. She hands you a clove and tells you to chew gently. You do. It doesn't help. You ask Widow Agnes. She gives you a dark paste and says, don't swallow it unless you hate yourself. You don't. You spit and pray. Some say the only real cure for toothache is a hot iron and strong ale. You choose suffering. You wonder what it would cost to see a proper barber surgeon. Then you remember you have a turnip and 3 eggs to your name. You sit in silence instead. The ache stays with you for days. You work anyway. You smile with only half your mouth. Historians still debate the health of medieval peasants. Some point to strong bones and active lives. Others cite tooth decay, rickets, and a lifespan that could be measured in sheep pregnancies. You don't care about the debate. You just want the ache to stop. But in time, it dulls. Or maybe you grow used to it. You keep the paste from Agnes, just in case. You keep the clove, too. It reminds you of survival and your own strangely stubborn teeth. It begins with clouds. It's fat, slow, and harmless at first. Then darker, like bruises in the sky. By the second day, the wind arrives, carrying warnings in its howl. You don't know the science. No one does. But everyone knows the signs. The storm comes at night. Rain lashes the thatch. The fire sputters. Your siblings huddle close, eyes wide. Your father checks the door 3 times. Your mother clutches her rosary and mutters names of saints. Never heard before? Saint Scholastica? Saint Milburga? Hold the roof down. Outside, something crashes. You think it's the pig's trough. You hope it's not. The pig morning brings the worst kind of surprise. Mud where grain should be. The field looks drowned. The wheat leans like drunks, and the barley simply gave up. The steward comes 2 days later, on a horse that seems smugly dry. He surveys the damage and says the same phrase 3 times. The Lord will understand. No one's sure if he means God or the landowner. Your father kicks a clod of wet earth and mutters something unholy. Your mother hushes him. Your brother checks the roof again. That night, the priest announces a mass for forgiveness. It's not for you. For the village, he says. The storm is punishment. You think it was just weather. Still you kneel. Still you pray. Elle's bed is there. Her eyes are red. Her family's oats were flattened. You take her hand under the pew. She doesn't pull away. After the service, you help pile sandbags along the southern edge of the field. It won't help much, but it gives people something to do, other than cry or curse or blame. The chickens are the only ones unbothered. They waddle through puddles like royalty and muck. Historians still debate how medieval people understood weather. Some say they saw it as divine punishment. Others suggest they were surprisingly practical, that they knew bad luck when they saw it and learned to plant again anyway. You stand in the drizzle and look up. The clouds are gone now. They always come back, and so will you. The older your children grow, the less you sleep. Not because of crying. Those days are mostly behind you. but because of worry. You worry about the roof, the rats, the ox's left foot that looks swollen. You worry about your eldest son, who now calls himself a man, though he still forgets to wash behind his ears and somehow always loses the same belt. And you worry about your youngest daughter, who thinks caterpillars are magical and is taken to hiding bread under floorboards. For the mice, you are now called father in the kind of tone that carries both reverence and annoyance. You catch your own reflection in a pail of water one morning and realize you look like your father. It startles you. The fields are yielding decently this year. Nothing special, but nothing shameful. You're good at coaxing life from the ground. Now, your hands know where stones hide. Your eyes know when the frost is lying. Your heart knows when to dig deeper. Even when your back protests, you've become the sort of person younger men ask advice from. You tell them to be kind to their cows, they laugh. But you know it's not a joke. The cow is the soul of the household. She gives milk, warmth, calm. When she moves softly as you pass, it feels like a benediction. You know her moods better than your own. One morning, you wake to find her calf standing awkwardly beside her legs like stilts, eyes full of wonder. You name him Muddle because he doesn't seem to know what to do with all those limbs. Your children are delighted. Your wife is relieved. And you strangely feel like something divine is nodded in your direction. Historians still debate the emotional lives of peasants. Some argue they were too burdened for tenderness. Others believe the very weight of life made small joys like calves and cheese and silly children, if it more sacred. You sit by the fire that night with Muddle, softly breathing in the byre. Your family asleep, and the moon watching like an old friend. You still worry? But tonight it feels manageable. It starts with a rumor. Someone in the next village saw a relic of fingerbone of a saint, supposedly still fragrant after 400 years. People say touching it can cure blindness, lameness, and maybe even bad breath. Your neighbor is planning a pilgrimage to see it. He's packing cheese, a borrowed cloak, and a walking stick carved with a fish at the top. You admire the carving, more than the idea, but then your wife says something curious over breakfast. You've never left the valley. And just like that, your feet itch. A week later, you're on the road with 2 other villagers, some dried peas, a patched satchel, and knees that begin complaining before the sun fully rises. The path takes you through woods thick with foxglove. In fog, you pass other travelers, a monk with a lazy eye, a pair of boys carrying something suspiciously like stolen geese, and a woman who swears her donkey can predict the weather. You sleep under hedges. You eat cold bread. You wonder how your family is managing without you, and how they're doing it better than you'd expected. Eventually, you reach the chapel. It's smaller than you imagined, damp-smelling, full of candles and coughs. You kneel, you pray. You stare at the glass case holding the relic. It looks like a chicken bone, but you feel something. Not magic. Exactly. Not certainty. Like the quiet hush inside. Like the kind that happens just before snow falls. And that's enough. You tie a scrap of ribbon to the shrine, as others have. Done. You don't ask for miracles. You just say thank you. Historians still debate how meaningful peasant pilgrimages were. Were they sacred journeys or excuses for time off? For you, it's both. You return home dirty, blistered, lighter somehow. Not enlightened, just steadied. The cow moos when she sees you. You think she missed you? Maybe you just missed her? You're peeling onions the morning of the feast. Your hands are red and your eyes sting, but your heart is light. Because today, after months of whispered plans, bread baking, and some very tense conversations about dowries, your eldest daughter is getting married. The baker's son of all people. He's decent, smells like flour, carries his own firewood. He also made your daughter laugh when her goat died, which, frankly, earned your respect forever. The village turns out for the feast. No one misses a wedding, even if it's only 4. The free ale. The tables are covered with rough linens, and every dish is someone's best effort. Pies with lopsided crusts, sausages that burst too soon, a carrot pudding that looks suspiciously like porridge but tastes passable. You watch as your daughter is led to the chapel, hair woven with wildflowers, cheeks red from both joy and nerves. The priest drones on, and you don't hear a word. You're too busy wondering when she grew up. You still remember the night she first said Papa while tugging on your ear. Now she's holding someone else's hand, and your heart feels like a sack of grain with a hole at the bottom. Slowly, steadily emptying, even while it stays full. The dancing starts at dusk. You even join in once. It goes poorly, but no one notices. Later, you sit by the fire, watching the flames flicker on the clay mugs and the greasy plates. Someone has started singing a song you knew when you were her age. You hum along quietly. Historians still debate how much personal freedom peasants had in choosing marriage partners. Some say it was practical and arranged. Others point to folk songs, poems, and church records that hint at real affection. You don't care what they say? Your daughter looks happy. It's history enough. He was always there, wasn't he? Get old. Edrig, the man with the crooked back and the perfect whittling knife. The one who told stories by the fire claimed he once saw a talking bird and insisted the river was haunted by a woman who combed her hair with fish bones. He never had family. He simply belonged to the village, like the bell tower or the crooked apple tree near the road. You noticed he wasn't at the wedding feast? Then, a few mornings later, the air was still, in that strange way it gets before grief arrives, and the bell rang early. One time, slowly they laid him out in the chapel. His boots beside him, a sprig of lavender on his chest. Someone, maybe your wife, had trimmed his beard. He looked smaller in death than in life. Or maybe you're just seeing him more honestly now. There's no grand funeral, just some prayers, a few mumbled stories, and a procession to the edge of the field, but as the earth covers him, it feels like the end of a chapter. Not because he was famous, not because he was wealthy, but because he remembered things no one else did. Stories, names, how to mend a yoke with only rope and hope. You speak at the burial. You hadn't planned to. But the silence needed filling. You say, he was part of us. That's all. It's enough. Later that night, your son asked if the river really is haunted. You tell him yes. You tell him about the woman in the fishbone comb. He listens wide-eyed. Then he tells the story to his sister, who adds that the woman sometimes turns into a trout. And just like that, Drig lives again. Historians still debate how oral traditions survived among peasants. Was it story, memory, or magic? You don't. No, you just know that stories float, even when people don't. There's something about reaching a certain age you begin to enjoy stirring stew more than attending festivals. And not because the stew is exciting, it's not. It's turnips again, with the quiet. The quiet is starting to feel like a reward. Your knees ache on damp mornings. Your back has learned the alphabet of groans. And your fingers, once so quick to tie knots or weave baskets, now take their time, as if afraid of doing something wrong. You spend more time sitting by the hearth, watching smoke curl into old beams and letting your thoughts drift like dust motes. Sometimes you think of nothing. Other times you think of too much. Your younger children now handle the heavy work field, fence, firewood. You try to help. You still try. But they gently shoo you away, not unkindly, not with words. It's just the way someone pats a dog who insists. On following, even when it limps, you're carving spoons now. Not because anyone needs more, but because wood feels good in your hand. Because shaping something, even slowly, still makes the day feel full. One of your spoons ends up in the chapel. The priest uses it to ladle holy water on saints' days. You feel oddly proud, as if your soul might now come with a handle. Pilgrims pass through more often now. They come in pairs, cloaks faded from long travel. They speak of distant shrines, of candles that cry blood, of monks who never blink. You nod. You listen. But you don't envy them. Historians still debate the role of elders in medieval villages. Some claim they were discarded, once too weak to work. Others say they became vessels of lore, keepers of time, trusted even more as their bodies failed. You hope it's the latter. And when the evening bell rings and no one expects you to move, you close your eyes and smile. You've started talking more after supper. Maybe it's the firelight. It makes memory feel like a warm place, not a heavy one. You tell stories your children never heard before. about the time you stole a goose and blamed it on the smith's apprentice, about how scared you were the night your first child was born, about the day you saw Elsbeth and thought there's the rest of my life. They laugh. Some roll their eyes, but they listen. And you notice your youngest son repeating your gestures, the way you scratch your beard when thinking, or how you stir stew clockwise. Always clockwise then. One day a bailiff arrives. Not yours, not from your manor. This one is from the royal court, he says. Tall, thin, horse-like polished walnut. Parchment that crackles like it's about to tell a secret. He's here to count. Land, people, livestock for the crown, says. You ask why? He shrugs. It is time, which means someone somewhere wants something. The village is nervous. You remember the last royal tax? They called it a gift. He gave half your barley and didn't eat meat for a year. The bailiff stays too. Daisy never smiles, writes with ink that smells like vinegar in control. He asks, how many children you have, you lie? It's just a little. You say 6, even though 2 are married and gone? Doesn't notice. He rides off without a goodbye. The village exhales like a tired bellows. That night, you tell your family. The world is changing again. You don't say how. You don't know, but you feel it. Like a shift in wind before a storm you can't see, historians still debate how much contact peasants had with royal government. Some say it was minimal. Others argue even the smallest village felt the crown's breath, especially when coin was short. All you know is this: the bailiff looked at you like a number, not a person. You've spent your whole life being someone. You're not ready to be a number. The air has changed. Not just the weather, though, that too. The fog now lingers longer in the mornings, curling low in the fields like it's searching for something. The birds sing quieter. Maybe your ears are fading. You've taken 2 early walks again. Not far. Just to the old tree near the edge of the field. The one with bark that looks like wrinkled skin and branches that always seem to point east, like they remember where the sun should rise. You sit on its exposed root, bones creaking, breath cloudy, even when the day warms. You don't bring tools anymore, just thoughts. Sometimes you swear you feel the earth sigh beneath you, not in pain, in recognition. Your neighbors still wave. Fewer now. Some moved, some gone. Even the steward seems older, though his nose remains a permanent insult to geometry. You. Start talking to yourself, perhaps to those you miss. Edrig, your father. The priest who blessed your cow with rosemary and got sneezed on for his trouble, and Elsbeth she passed in spring, softly, like steam rising from a warm loaf. You held her hand until it cooled. You wept like a child, like a man, like something. Older than both, you still talk to her? Out loud every day? No one questions it. You wear her shawl now when it gets cold. The villagers pretend not to notice. You know they do. They say nothing. Historians still debate how medieval peasants experienced grief. Some point to church rituals, others to folk traditions of candles, veils, and dreams. You believe grief is like fog. It comes in slow, stays too long, and never really leaves. But you learn to walk through it, one soft footstep at a time. Your grandchildren don't fear you. This is both shocking and delightful. They climb you like a tree, hide behind your knees, tug at your beard. One claims you're a wizard because your eyebrows are trying to fly away. Correct them when they mispronounce things, and they mispronounce them on purpose to make you frown. It's a game. You always lose. One day. Your eldest granddaughter asks how to lie convincingly. You nearly choke on your porridge, but you answer slowly, carefully if you must lie. You say make it a kind one, and never about stolen eggs. Those always come back to haunt you. She nods solemnly, then immediately blames her brother for a missing biscuit. You're pretty sure that was your biscuit. You begin telling stories again. Real ones, mostly. About the time lightning struck the church bell and the priest started shouting in Latin for 2 straight hours. About how you once danced so badly at a harvest feast that someone mistook you for a possessed cartwheel. The children are fascinated. They believe every word. You watch their faces, wide eyes, twitching lips, hands over mouths to stifle giggles. And you feel something unexpected. Usefulness. Not the kind that carries wood or tills earth, but the kind that keeps memories warm. You catch your reflection in a wash basin. You look ... friendly. Not wise, not fearsome. It's just someone who knows things that shouldn't be forgotten. Historians still debate whether elders served as oral historians in peasant society. You think they did? Not with scrolls or sermons, but with funny voices, missing teeth, and stories half true, half magic. You sit by the fire again, spoon in hand. Grandchild, at your feet, the world has shrunk to the size of your cottage, and it's more than enough. The village holds a fair once a year. It's the only time the pigs smell better than the people. You've been to every fair since you were a child. Some blur together now, a haze of pies, itchy wool, spilled ale, and someone trying and failing to walk a goose on a leash. But this year's fair feels, maybe it's because you don't walk there so much as shuffle, or because people speak to you a little slower now, as if you've become a relic too. Still, the fair smells the same: roasted onions, sweet apples, mud. A juggler drops a flaming torch. A pig escapes and is pursued by a priest, 2 children, and an old woman with a wooden spoon. You laugh harder than you have in months. Someone plays a fiddle. You feel it before you hear it. The tug of memory behind your ribs. The notes drift down the lane and curl around your ankles like they've come looking for you. Without thinking, you stand. Your knees protest. Your back mutters threats. But you walk toward the music anyway. And then you dance. Not well. With grace, but you move in time, clapping softly, smiling with your whole body. A few cheer, some join. The fiddler grins like he's seen a ghost, a cheerful, for them ghost who remembers how to smile. For a moment, you aren't old, you're just someone who danced at the fair. Historians still debate the role of seasonal festivals in peasant communities. Were they escapism, ritual, or rebellion in disguise? You don't know. But you'll remember this day, not for the stew or the stalls or even the music, but because this is the last time you'll dance. And somehow, that makes it perfect. Winter that follows comes early, and it bites. Your teeth ache with the cold, even the ones that left years ago. Your joints complain more loudly than the children, and the thatch above your bed creaks like it has secrets to share. But only if you promise not to tell the steward. You wrap yourself in every blanket you own. Become a sort of bundled monument to stubbornness and linen. Your grandchildren call you the heap. You're no longer expected to chop wood or fetch water or fix hinges. You're expected to sit, maybe nod. Occasionally hum approval at soup, but you notice things now. You notice how your son sharpens tools with the same rhythm you once used. How your daughter sings while cooking, the same tune your wife once hummed. How the youngest child now wears your old cap, too big, flopping into their eyes. The house still runs without you. That's both a comfort and a sorrow. One morning, before sunrise, you wake to stillness. No wind, no coughs. No animals stirring, just ... silence. You sit up, your bones protest. The hearth is dying, embers like stars at the end of their shift. You listen to the sound of nothing and realize it's beautiful, because nothing means no sickness, no fire, no invaders, just a winter's breath holding still. Historians still debate whether peasants feared death or accepted it as part of the soil. You think it's both? But mostly, it's about knowing that when you're gone, the stew will still bubble, the fire will still crackle, and someone will still laugh at something silly near the hearth. You close your eyes again, and for once, you don't dream. You no longer rise with the sun. Instead, the sun visits you, peeking through the thatched gaps above your bed. Dusting your pillow with gold like it's trying to impress you, your body obeys fewer commands. Your hands forget why they stood. Up in the first place, your legs second-guess stairs. And your back. Your back gave up arguing years ago and now simply hums in complaint. Like an old dog muttering in its sleep. But your mind has become a slow-burning hearth. And memory is kind now. It does not strike like lightning. It glows. You remember planting your first bean? The smell of bread before your wedding? The first time your child wrapped a fist around your thumb and refused to let go? You even remember? The steward, yes him. It's that walking ledger of human irritation. You once swore you'd push him into a puddle. You never did. Though once, a goat did. You still smile at that. Your youngest grandchild sits with you often now, carving sticks into ships that will never sail. They ask questions. So many questions. What's a knight? What's a tax? Did you ever fight in a war? Answer honestly. Mostly, you leave out the parts about hunger and fear. But you tell them how brave their mother was when she faced her first storm, how clever their father was when he bartered a broom for 3 eggs and a fishing hook. And you tell them this. You were made of everything that came before you, even the crooked parts. Historians still debate how much peasants thought about legacy. Some say they lived too close to survival to ponder such things. But legacy doesn't always look like statues or scrolls. Sometimes it's a child listening at your knee, or a song hummed while mending, or a story whispered by the fire. Long after you're gone, one day, you don't wake up. There's no drama. It's no lightning bolt. No distant bell tolling in slow motion. You simply stay asleep. Your family finds you as the light enters the window, just the way you liked. Your hands folded, as if resting between tasks. Your face calm. You left mid-dream, and no one can bring themselves to wake you. They weep. Of course they do, quietly, each in their own time. They do not scream, do not wail. You were not stolen. You were simply ... complete. The priest comes, says kind words, though he stumbles through your name once. The cow moos loudly just as he finishes, and it makes everyone smile, which is how you'd want it. They bury you at the edge of the village, near the field you once mended with nothing but rope, mud, and willpower. They plant rosemary. You always liked rosemary, and life moves forward. Your son takes over the cottage, repairs the roof, sweeps the hearth, keeps the spoon you carved in the chapel. He doesn't say much, but you'd be proud of how often he listens. Your grandchildren play in the same fields, trip over the same roots, argue over the same mushrooms. They still talk about the fishbone ghost lady in the river. They believe more in her than in taxes. Reasonable. Years pass, and yet something of you remains in the floorboards worn by your steps, in the stories told at dusk, in the way someone still stirs stew clockwise without knowing why. Historians still debate how much a single peasant life mattered in the grand sweep of medieval history. But this cottage remembers you, and that's more than enough. Time has moved on, as it always does, unbothered, unbending, and completely uninterested in your opinion on the matter. You are gone, yes, but not gone. Your name is still said in the quiet way people refer to things that matter. Was her grandfather's tool, they say, or he's got his grandmother's stubborn brow. Or, simplest of all, they were good people. Your old cottage has changed. The roof's been redone. There's a new door. Aye, but the hearth is the same. And the fire still curves toward the same beam it always has. Your great-grandchild now tells stories, some yours, some new, some gloriously wrong. They add details. Dragons, glowing eyes, magical spoons. Apparently, you once fought off a wolf with a loaf of stale bread. You'd approve. The village is a little bigger now. New fences, a stone well, distant road no one recognizes yet. But your old field still grows barley. Your tree still leans to the east. And the bench you carved into the roots is worn smooth by people who never knew your name but still find peace there. A traveling monk once stayed the night in the village. He wrote in his ledger, "This place is oddly kind. Even the dogs wag their tails before barking." He slept in your old room. Historians still debate whether peasant lives contributed meaningfully to the progress of the medieval world. But maybe they asked the wrong question, because the stew still boils. The songs still echo, and someone still laughs by a fire whose first spark you once lit. And that sounds like meaning. Long after names have faded from memory, places hold on. Your village still exists, though the name has shifted slightly, worn smooth by centuries of accents and scribes. The road is better now. There are signs. The map includes it, though barely. A dot, a whisper. but the rhythm remains. Someone still gets up at dawn and curses the cold. Someone still burns the bread and blames the fire. Children still race down the muddy path, daring each other to knock on the chapel door at dusk. The church. Bell has been replaced, but it rings the same note. Lower now, heavier, like it's grown old too. Your resting place is shaded by trees that didn't exist in your time. Birds perch on the stone, and wildflowers bloom around it with no ones. Permission. A historian visits once. Young, eager, full of questions. They want records, names, events. They leave with a drawing of your village and a note. Not much here, just life. You'd be proud of that. Because history isn't always in the battles or crowns or burning. Cities. Sometimes it's in the way someone needs dough. The way they patch trousers with a little red thread. The way a mother sings a lullaby she doesn't remember learning. And sometimes it's just in the soil. You came from it. You returned to it. And between those two moments, you loved, built, taught, worried, laughed, repaired, failed, danced, grieved, aged, and told one very good lie about a haunted river. And now you are part of everything that came after. The night stretches long now. The fire is low. Its last embers blink like tired eyes. The room you once lived in is dim but warm, warmed not only by heat, but by the memory woven into every beam and stone. Someone stirs in the corner. A child. Curled in a blanket too big for them, asleep with a wooden spoon still clutched in their hand. Perhaps dreaming of barley fields, of sheep that answer questions, the old trees that tell stories when the wind hits just right, the wind hums against. The walls, not fierce, not mournful, just familiar. It's like an old friend passing by, and the cottage breathes. The same breath you once gave it when you mended the roof with your bare hands, when you patched the leaks with mud and willpower, when you built a life beneath the same old sky. Outside, the fields lie in frost. The stars blink lazily. World for now is quiet, as if even the moon holds its breath. Your name may no longer be spoken, but your life hums in the background, in the rhythm of soup stirred at dusk, in the silence between tolls of the bell. In the stories told just before sleep, when no one quite remembers how they started, this was the life of a peasant. A king, not a hero, just a soul who endured, who cared, who danced once terribly at a village fair. And now you rest. So let go. The soil is soft, the sky is wide, and you are exactly where you're meant to be. Good night, sleep well. The story will still be here in the morning,